Alright, g'day guys, welcome to another Soviet lens reviews video. Today something a little bit different. We are going to be shooting a Soviet designed watch, the Vostok Amphibia, with a Soviet lens, the Zenitar ME1, with its very special square aperture. Before we jump into the video, a quick bit of history on why I decided to shoot the Vostok Amphibia. I think it's very interesting to me as someone who's a kind of Soviet engineering fan with all of the lenses. The Vostok Amphibia has a very similar story. It was created in the 1960s by two designers at the Chistopol Vostok plant, Mikhail Novikov and Vera Belova. And those two essentially had the very hard task of creating a dive watch that was suitable down to 300 meters pressure, any sort of temperatures down there on the sea floor. It had to be mass manufacturable, it had to be cheap, and they did it in a few months, all without being able to, essentially steal any patents. They came up with all of the technology in this watch themselves. So that's what makes it so unique, such an interesting design. They had to make a new class of steel that just wasn't produced in the Soviet Union to put into this watch. Same with, I think, the rubber in it as well. So very interesting watch. But today we are going to shoot this a little bit of product photography style. We've got two very inexpensive lights here that I use to shoot it with. This one is just the Falcon Eyes RGB pocket light. This one, I've just got a very simple newer speed light as well. Very handy for product photography. But yeah, I think that's just about it. Why don't we dive into it and see how we can shoot this Vostok. As you can see here, this is kind of what our hero shot composition's looking like. I am actually using a Sony Bluetooth speaker as a kind of armband, if you will, to really help the watch stand out. And we've just got a flashlight here on the camera on the Nikon Z6. This is at the lowest power. I am zoomed in a little bit as well, which I think just focuses the beam a little bit further, or more directly, I should say, onto the watch. We've also got an RGB light there, which, as you can see, is actually blue. And if I give everyone vertigo, then you can see that it is only at about 50% power for my pocket light. And if I go ahead and turn the light off, and then what we'll do is I'll just show two things. So at the moment, this is what it's looking like in the viewfinder. What we'll do is we'll just take a test shot there to show everyone. So that's what the test shot's looking like. As you can see, the background is kind of blown out a little bit. But then what I've got here is I've just got a neutral density filter. If the camera decides to focus, which it doesn't look like it is. Anyways, trust me, this is a neutral density filter. So what I'm actually doing is just putting the neutral density. If I can focus, no. Oh, there we go. So I'm just holding the neutral density up right here, up against the speed light, and then so what we'll do is we'll just hit the go button again. And then we'll see just the difference that it's made. So if I go ahead and just show everyone in the preview, so we've got without speed light, which is here, and then with speed light, which is here. So as you can see, it's kind of got rid the neutral density filter holding it in front of the speed light. It's got rid of that kind of really bright highlight that we don't really want on the holder. So there we go. Now I might try a few other little bits and pieces here, but for now I think, yeah, we're getting a pretty decent looking shot out of it that we can work a little bit in post and yeah, come up with something good.
Okie dokie guys, here we are in raw therapy, and we've just picked a few of the good images that we've taken here of the Vostok Amphibia with the Zenitar ME1. And I picked the three top images just to really quickly run through them from the end here. So this image was captured with the speed light on a very, very high power setting. So you can see it has very little ambient light. Even the blue LED light, which is on 100%, you can barely see its effect in this photo. Now, the reason that this is not going to be our final photo is just because Here on the 9, I don't really like how the reflection from the speedlight is just occluding the 9 a little bit. Now, of course, you could do some Photoshop kind of editing and probably get that to a stage where it's not looking too bad, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm not going to be choosing any of these two, and instead I am going to be picking this one, which was the Amphibia in its original case. Okay, and I also really like the flare on this one as well. So just initially zooming in here, we can see it's nice and sharp, very sharp in fact, and I love even just the shadows that the speed light has created here on the hands. Really gives them a little bit of a three-dimensional feel, and we've still got a touch of that blue LED light coming in from the left. So let's go ahead. First off, our favorite tool, going to be turning on some sharpening. I like to use RL deconvolution because this is effectively a more realistic sharpening tool for areas that are already in focus. But I probably don't want it at 100. I think that's just a bit crazy. We don't want to get it too crazy. We just want to get it to a point where it's, you know, looking nice and crisp, which I think this just about is. Now, another tool here that I do like sometimes in raw therapy is the local contrast tool. Just gives a slightly more polished feel to the look of our images, particularly when, you know, we're using a lens from the Soviet era, which potentially might not have quite as much crazy contrast as some modern lenses. So we can see here, that's just giving a really nice, subtle, slightly more polished look to the image. We're going to leave that on the default settings. We don't need to do any noise reduction. We shot this at ISO, I believe 200, so no need for any noise reduction there. And I don't think we're going to be using any other tools from the detail column. So now we're just going to go ahead and move into the main column here. Now I think the exposure actually is looking pretty good. I think even the highlight here that, you know, I think we've really pretty much nailed the exposure. But what I do want to do is just further decrease the background here. Now what I really like doing is going into these LAB sliders, and particularly the LAB curves. LAB, very nice color space to work with, one of the most accurate color spaces and I guess most high dynamic range color spaces to work with. So what we're actually going to do is go into just the plain lightness column, go into parametric there, and I think we'll just decrease the shadows a touch. Yeah, there we go. That's actually what we want, because we really just want all of the viewers' focus to be purely on that watch. So there we go. I mean, you'd probably achieve a similar effect just by decreasing the shadows in the exposure, but again, I try and keep all of my main color adjustments in one color space where possible. So now I do really want to make this orange on the dial pop. So what we're going to do here is go into the chromacity to the lightness, CL, parametric, and then I think, where are we? There we go. So we can really start to get a little bit crazy here, but obviously let's not go too crazy. So we can see what this does. So this definitely affects the all of those nice colors on the front of the watch. And if we just reset that, we can see that, yeah, the orange on the front of the watch is really just being popped out there a little bit. I really like that. It's not too crazy. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of the blue. We could maybe tone that down a little bit further, just because the blue is perhaps starting to look a little bit maybe out of place. But look, I like it. I think it's showing off the Scuba Dude pretty well. You know, it's making all of that orange on the dial pop. I think that's looking pretty good. So really, I mean, at this stage, there's not a great amount that we actually need to do. If we really want to get, pixel perfect, then what we could do is add in some chromatic aberration correction here. Personally, I'm not overly fussed about doing this. I think, you know, the Zenita ME1 already has so little chromatic aberration that we're not really going to be seeing too much there. That at the size that we're going to be posting this, which is, you know, effectively an Instagram story size, it's not really going to be visible, that tiny little bit of fringing or chromatic aberration. But yeah, I think outside of that, we just need to give the image a bit of a crop. There we go. Okay, I think that's looking good. So we've got the watch there. That's looking nice. We've even got like a touch of a reflection, which wasn't really intended down there. And all we really need to do now is export this from Raw Therapy. I'm going to go ahead and put that to Q, which is going to drop us out a nice high quality uncompressed PNG. And from there, we can do our final adjustments in Photoshop, Paint.net, whatever we want to use. Okie dokie guys, here we are in Paint.net. We've just imported the PNG image into here, and we're just going to make a few quick little touch-ups here just to fix up the image. First off, let's duplicate that. Let's make a working layer here. Now, Paint.net, it is my tool of choice. Feel free to use Photoshop if you actually have it and like it. First things first, I actually really want to get rid of this ugly bit on the top of the case. So what I'm going to do is maybe copy this area of the case instead, and we're going to pop that into a new layer and basically just copy it over. Just take the clone stamp tool, make it a little bit larger, turn the opacity down quite a bit, and we just go. There. Yeah. And look, as we can see, that tiny little touch there has gone from that to this. And because we're only going to be viewing this image, you know, basically at that sort of a resolution, you really can't tell. It's so dark in there anyway that I'm actually pretty happy with how that's worked out. So we're going to create another backup of this layer, working two. Could probably name them properly. Now, what else do we want to do? Well, the first thing that we actually want to do is we want to get rid of all of these little scratches, or as many of these little scratches as we can. So what we're going to do here, we're going to name this working backup, working blur even, and we're just going to add a touch of median. A little median filter here, and what this median filter here is going to do is just going to get rid of all of those little specks, because that's what a median filter is. It just takes the mean of pixels in an area, and so we can see there that that's done a pretty good job of that. Now, of course, we're not going to leave it like that. Median, we're going to create a new layer and name it median cutout. And what we're going to do here is just going to take the eraser tool, make it nice and small, not too opaque, and we can actually just go in and effectively, just brush this out maybe a little bit more opaque just for the sake of this tutorial, and just get rid of all of these little specks. Okay, look, and we are far from perfect, but I think for the sake of this video, we are looking pretty good actually. So let's just take a quick little look at what we're working with. And in fact, we can see here, if I take away all these other layers, just what we've brushed out. There we go. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make a merge of these two layers, and then we can see the difference. So particularly up close, we can see that and we've got rid of a lot of those kind of ugly scratches pretty easily. Okay, I think at this stage, honestly, there's not too much more that I think we need to do to this watch. I think, it's not too much dodging and burning that I think needs to happen either. Yeah, I think we're at a stage now where we can call this done.
So, good bit of fun. Shot the Vostok, post it up on Instagram, get a few likes, and what more do you want? Certainly, a few steps away from professional product photography, but that's what I like to do. Just dabble into different areas and, have a bit of fun with it. That's what I think photography, particularly on vintage lenses, is all about. So, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe to Soviet Lens Reviews on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next one.